Ladies and gentlemen, it is time. It is time for me to make my VFL team. In fact, my camera would probably be better placed down here because it works better with VFL. But yeah, it's time for me to make my VFL team. Here we go. Now, camouflage with a leaf. That team didn't go so well. That was my team during Masters Santiago, of course. But of course, we got 100 Valorant points to spend. You, of course, can go make your VFL team as well. We got a whole list of players to potentially choose from. Stage 1 is here. And important note, again, just in case you want to make your team, is, of course, don't include any Americas players because Americas isn't playing in Game Week 1. So my team, my Game Week 1 team, will have no Americas players in it. Yours shouldn't either. You're going to get 3 transfers each week. So from week 1 to week 2, you'll get to make 3 changes. So you'll get 15 changes overall by the time you get to Game Week 6. You've only got 11 players. So you could change everyone in your team and still have 4 to spare as well. You don't have to use the transfers if you don't want to. But yeah, today we're going to talk about who's going to get into my team. So there's a big difference with Stage 1 VFL versus the others, in my opinion, like Kickoff or Santiago. And that is, of course, that we have a schedule. We know who will play each other, this week and then next week and then the week after. We know that, right? Whereas when you're in Kickoff or a Masters tournament, we don't know that. And that, I think, provides a crucial difference. And you'll see that the fixtures are going to come heavy into my thinking. It shouldn't be the only thing you think about, of course. You should be thinking about what teams do you expect to do well, and all that. But it will come into my thinking, and I'll show you that. So if we just take a look at the groups here of EMEA and Pacific, again, the only 2 regions we're going to build this initial team out of, there's a couple things that we need to think about, right? The first thing is, and I think this is true in a couple of the regions, certainly here in EMEA, this group Alpha, I would say, fairly difficult to predict. It would not surprise me if in Group Alpha, Heretics beat Navi, but then Navi beat KC beat Heretics, Gentlemates beat, there's a lot of this team beat this team, but then this team also won. I wouldn't expect anyone to go undefeated in that group, is basically what I'm trying to say. Whereas when you look at Group Omega, I think there's a clear top 3 teams. And, then there's these 3 teams. And I think that therefore you can look to target that. And one of the teams, if I just go and say okay, well, BBL, Fnatic, and Vitality, I'm expecting to finish in the top 3. Well, let's take a look at Vitality's game. So they play Giants first, so that's great. But then they play Fnatic. But then they play Eternal Fire. So I think going for Vitality, these first 3 weeks, okay, the Fnatic game, not too easy, but 2 out of 3 isn't bad, right? For Fnatic, it's obviously a similar sort of thing. They play Eternal Fire and Pacific, but then have Vitality in the middle of that, right? Again, that second game, not so great. Unless you feel very confident about one of those teams winning, of course. But if you look at BBL, they play Pacific, Eternal Fire, and then Giants, right? And I would argue that they have got the easiest game, then the second easiest game, then the third easiest game, most likely, right? In order. And so what I'm suggesting is, for me, BBL, I'm going to go double BBL. And I'm going to get 3 games that I think that they should win. And if they aren't doing well, I can just transfer them out, right? If it looks rough, if they lose 1 or 2 of these games before we get to Vitality Fnatic, oh, they're gone, right? They're gone. Oh, I'm giving up hope. But if they win these 3 games, they still might be gone if Vitality and Fnatic look really good. But these 3 games, I feel pretty good about, right? So I'm going to end up with 2 BBL players. As I say, in this group Alpha, look, if you believe heavy in Gentlemates, or you believe heavy in Heretics or Navi or whoever it is, right? I think that's absolutely fine to go in, for these teams if you're a big believer, but it's more risky, in my opinion. Looking over at Pacific here, this group, which is very tough, especially for Team Secret, I'm not feeling great about them in general. But this I think is a tough group to call, right? And you're starting off with that Paper X Nongshim game. This is another situation where you will have some room to bring in Nongshim or Paper X players later on if you want to. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea, because once this game is out of the way, I feel if you can then bring in Paper X players, or then bring in Nongshim players, I'd feel better about it. Now Nongshim, I think you could perhaps give it even more time, to be honest, in terms of, Paper X into DRX. That's a pretty tough first 2 games. So I'm not feeling great about that. In the other group, I was going through the different games, who people have got. And, you look at maybe one of the favorites. So let's take a look at T1. Okay, T1 have Varel, then DFM. That's not too bad. But if you look at RRQ, they've got Zeta and Varel in their first 2 games, right? So again, to me, it's like starting off double RRQ and then, kind of getting rid here before this T1 game. I've got 2 good weeks there. I've got 2 weeks where I feel good about RRQ winning games, right? So I'm feeling like I'm going to end up on double RRQ. I'm going to end up on double BBL. And there's another thing to consider here as well, which is I want to be bringing in America's players, right? So who's got the easiest fixture like this week? Well, Zeta, play against RRQ. I'm already going for BBL against Pacific in EMEA. So RRQ, I'm already going for them, right? That looks good. But Team Secret, can I target them? Well, they play DRX. So if we look at DRX's schedule, they got Team Secret, but then they got Nongshim. But this is perfect, right? So far what I'm laying out to you is I like BBL, I like RRQ, and I like DRX for this week. And then next week, I can bring in 2 America's players for my DRX players. These DRX players are a 1 week kind of thing, right? And if I do that, that's already 6 of my 11 players. 6 out of 11 potentially already just tied up in essentially 3 teams, right? And then the other 5, I think will probably just be players who I feel maybe more confident about in general, right? Like in general, players that I generally just feel good about who will probably, be more of a core 5 that maybe I'll look to move on at the very end. So with that in mind, let's get building this team. And a crucial thing is as well, right? Particularly for the DRX guys, I know I want to get rid of them. So they are going to be wildcards, right? Because I know my transfers are going to be DRX players straight away. So I want these guys to be wildcards, right? Because I'm pretty sure I'm going to, like, unless they look unbelievable and it makes me think, I'm going to want to get rid of these guys. Now, because it's only for 1 week, I'm actually a little bit hesitant here in terms of going in like big for someone like Hyunmin. I actually think I'm better off because it's only 1 game, right? And the 1 game could go kind of crazy. It could go kind of weird. I think I'm actually better off going for the cheap DRX options and just hoping. I mean, Hermes might not even play. By the way, if Hermes doesn't play, you will get the sub. Whoever comes in, whoever plays for DRX, I think we're just gonna have to do it as like you will get the points of the person who's not playing. So if Hermes doesn't play or whatever, you'll know that's you'll still get the points basically if he doesn't play, because at this point we don't know what's going on. With that in mind, so that's my 2 DRX, right? And then similarly, I know the RRQ I want to get rid of in 2 weeks, right? In 2 weeks time, I want to get rid of RRQ. Now, I'm just going to leave this open because I might come back to this in terms of who I put there, because I'm not exactly sure what other players I'm going to get, like my other 5, essentially. But I think Duelist and probably my IGL for this first week is going to be Jemkin, right? Against Zeta Division, I think he should be pretty good. And obviously, Jemkin, I would expect in this meta as well to be, doing quite a bit of heavy lifting. Now, it is possible that Monyet plays Neon. Monyet could be a good option there if he does play Neon, and I might go Jemkin Monyet as well. We'll see how that goes. And then I say I want BBL players as well. BBL, this is a tough decision. Do you want LaRock or do you want Lover's Rock? I think with the Euro nerf, I'm willing to go LaRock. I think it's not impossible they play solo duelist some of the time here. And yeah, I think that's just a bit of a safer option. In terms of other players from these teams, I do kind of like Loit here. And again, you have to remember with BBL, like I am keeping their players for 3 weeks, right? So I'm keeping their players the longest probably of these groups. So I do want kind of the good picks. I don't like want a Rose necessarily because I am keeping them for multiple games, if you get what I mean. With the second RRQ pick, yeah, this one's a little bit tough about whether to go for Monyet. How much does Monyet cost? Monyet is 9. Nine's a bit of a pretty penny. Or my other thought would be going to someone like Cushy, who's 8. Is it worth saving the 1? I think it probably is, but it probably does depend somewhat on if you do think Monyet will play Neon, which I do think is fairly possible. He could just be a pretty cheap duelist on a good team, not on the duelist role. I think I'm actually talking myself into going for Monyet. The problem with Monyet is sometimes he's so inconsistent. I think he's too inconsistent. No, yeah, he's too inconsistent for me. But that's why he is priced a little bit higher, is because of that threat that he does play Neon. But I'm gonna go for this as kind of my entry point. And as I say, these 6 to me are like very clear choices. And then now it's about like finding value. Again, one of them might end up in this wildcard spot. It just depends on like who I need, what role I might need otherwise. So let's go about adding a Sentinel player here, right? And again, at this point, it's not like I'm not concerned about their fixtures. I will take a look at their fixtures, but I just need players who I think like, they're pretty good. And ideally we need some cheaper options. Now, I work for Foot, but I do think there is a decent chance that Yetijay, even if Foot don't win a ton of games, I think they'll be good enough to win maps. And I think Yetijay it has proven to be good enough to, frag out quite heavily. And I think when you consider his price to others, I know it's weird when I talk about the prices because I'm the one who sets the prices, but I think Yetijay is pretty good value, honestly, at that price. He has had some pretty poor games and some poor showings, but he can also pop off. I think we probably want a cheap initiator because you always basically want a cheap initiator because they just frag less in general than anyone else. So looking at someone that I might want to keep throughout, I mean, again, you basically want a player on a team that's not going to lose 2-0. So I'm kind of ruling out Zeta and Team Secret there and probably Pacific. I could go Lakia, genuinely. Obviously, you don't want to go Americas just yet. And then we start getting up to like Chloric, where I'm like, and Akame maybe. Akame is maybe an option there, but I do genuinely think for a whole 1 save here, Valorant point, going for Lakia doesn't seem too bad. So adding Pump Kia into my team. Now let's take a look at Gen G's games here. They play Global Week 1. Okay. I mean, he could be my third transfer alongside the DRX guys. Genuinely. I could keep him for Global and then get rid for Paper X Nongshim. That actually might be a decent idea, to be honest. That could be my third transfer is Lakia. It would mean that I have to get a cheap Americas player, but I think that might be a little bit easier. Again, you could go into Americas and like fully plan out who you're going to bring in, but I'm not going to do that just yet because I want to see what happens first. So yeah, that's that. And then we got 3 more players to bring in, and we still got 30.5 to spend, right? So we still got a good portion to spend here overall. And again, this needs to be about players and teams that I feel good about, right? Like who do I actually think like, oh yeah, you're gonna do something. It is possible I could go kind of cheap here again and go for someone like Cruz on a team that like I think is okay, and then go for like 2 big hitters. Because if I go for Cruz, I've got 24 to spend, which is quite a lot. I could even bring in like Martin slash, Danby, and still a 9-cost player. Like if a 9-cost Sentinel would be someone like what? Yudotan? That's not too bad. Sugetsu? Benji? That's pretty good. And I could get like Martin or Danby. Or I could go for someone like Alfia at Sentinel. I mean, surely Fnatic will be good. And that gives me 10.5. I mean, Alpha just has to be a good pick. Surely Alfia is just a good pick. Always is. And then I've got 10.5 to spend on this last player. And again, this is probably someone I'll feel good about, and I'll actually change it about with one of the RRQ guys if possible. But who have we got at 10.5? We got Levin, Ara, Mini, Sop. I could go double foot. Zeus as well. Woot, Team Heretics. I mean, Woot could be pretty good as well. That one's pretty. I like that. I think I might go Woot. In which case, do I have an initiator? Yes, I can change Cushy here. I mean, that's a risk, but it feels like a good risk. Okay, I mean, that is kind of a crazy team. I think that's a crazy good team. And again, the plan for at least next week is to get rid of freeing Hermes and probably Lakia, but if Heretics look awful, or maybe Foot do look lost and I get rid of Yetijay instead, right? Like I do have some different options, some different directions I could go in overall here, but I think I like this team, man. This team's kind of cooking. Jemkin IGL, I mean, I've got a good IGL, do I go Alpha instead? It's possible. It's possible I do. But I think for now, that's my team. Again, I am going to stream tomorrow before EMEA and, talk about my team. And I'll come up with a name as well. But yeah, right now, not too bad.